We're talking about the mysterious 1968 penny with the Rit D mint mark. To the untrained eye, it looks like an ordinary Lincoln cent. But for those who know what to look for, this tiny copper coin hides a story of error, secrecy, and unimaginable value. The year was 1968. The Denver Mint was striking billions of Lincoln pennies. The presses ran hot, dies wore down, and small mistakes slipped through. Most of them went unnoticed. But one error stood apart. An experimental mint mark impression that collectors now call the Rit D. At first glance, it seems like a normal D for Denver. But under magnification, the letter twists strangely, as if the engraver's hand slipped, creating faint letters beside it. What looks like Rit fused into the mint mark. Experts can't agree if it was a hub doubling accident, a test punch gone wrong, or a rare transitional die mix-up. But one thing is certain, it should never have left the mint. For years, nobody noticed. These pennies passed from pocket to pocket, dropped into piggy banks, and jingled through cash registers. They lived quiet lives in change jars and glove compartments. Until one surfaced in the 1990s, and the coin world stopped cold. The first known 1968 Rit D penny went to auction, and bidding exploded. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were whispering in the back rows. What should have been a 1-cent coin suddenly climbed past $100,000, then $250,000, then $500,000. By the time the hammer fell, the whispers turned to gasps. This penny had just made history, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example was discovered, this time in near-perfect condition. And when that coin sold, it pushed past the $1 million mark. A single copper penny, smaller than your thumbnail, now rivaled rare gold coins and ancient treasures in value. Why? Because rarity is everything. The Rit D mint mark is not just an error. It's an accident that was never supposed to exist. Some believe fewer than 5 are in the entire world. That's why collectors are rushing, scanning their old penny rolls, flipping through forgotten albums, hoping against hope they'll be the next to find one dot. And here's the detail that most people miss. The letters aren't bold. They aren't obvious. They almost look like scratches. But under a jeweler's loupe, you'll see the D curling strangely, with ghost-like impressions that appear to spell Rit. It's not on every 1968 penny. In fact, it's so rare, most coin shops have never seen one in person. Imagine checking your change after buying a cup of coffee and spotting this tiny mint mark. Imagine mailing a penny to an auction house and months later watching it cross the $1 million threshold. Collectors have described it as life-changing. One man said it turned his pocket change into a miracle. But here's the warning. Not every strange-looking D is the Rit D. Plenty of worn pennies show damage or scratches that fool beginners. That's why experts say you must look for the faint but deliberate pattern, the letters blending into the mint mark. If you see it, you may be holding a treasure that could rewrite your future T, and if it happens to be the 1968 Rit D penny, that 1-cent piece could be worth over $1 million. Picture this. It's 1967. The nation is celebrating its past, dreaming of its future, and pumping out billions of Lincoln cents. These were everyday coins, small, copper reminders of American grit. But hidden among those billions was a mistake, a quiet error, a mystery that no one spotted at first. Decades later, one collector pulled out an ordinary-looking penny. No mint mark, nothing flashy, just a simple 1967 Lincoln cent. But something about it was different. Under a jeweler's loupe, the story began to unfold. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because this was no ordinary penny. This was a survivor from one of the most chaotic years in American coinage. 1967 wasn't just another year. It was the middle of the mint's historic decision to strip coins of their mint marks. A desperate move to combat nationwide coin hoarding. Denver, Philadelphia, San Francisco, all stripped of their identity. For 3 long years, every cent bore nothing more than the date and Lincoln's solemn profile. But here's the twist most collectors don't know. Within that storm of production, errors slipped through. Rare planchet anomalies. Strikes so sharp they gleamed like proofs. A handful so flawless, so utterly unique, that they became instant legends. And in one shocking auction, a single 1967 Lincoln cent with no mint mark fetched a price tag that still echoes. Nearly $1.8 million. Think about that. A coin meant for pocket change, Something you could have used to buy a stick of gum became a once-in-a-lifetime fortune. Collectors were stunned, dealers were speechless, and suddenly, everyone was rushing to check their jars, their drawers, even the coins hiding between couch cushions. But why? What made this penny worth millions while billions of others remain ordinary? The answer lies in the tiniest of details. Subtle doubling visible only under careful magnification. Razor-sharp strikes that set it apart from the dull masses. And above all, the condition. Because while billions were spent, scraped, and forgotten, only a tiny handful survived in pristine, uncirculated brilliance. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Imagine dropping a coin on the sidewalk, not realizing it could change your entire life. That's the drama of this penny. That's why collectors are obsessed. And that's why you need to know exactly what to look for. But the story doesn't stop there. Auction houses have whispered of discoveries so rare that they sparked bidding wars lasting late into the night. Lifelong dealers have admitted they overlooked this coin, only to find out later they let a fortune slip through their fingers. And in one case, a single cent found in a roll from a small-town bank sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community. This tiny copper disc holds a power far beyond its weight. And the most haunting thought of all, somewhere out there, another one could still be waiting, sitting in an attic, sleeping in an old coffee can, or jingling unnoticed in a pocket right now. So how do you know if you have one? First, check the date, 1967. No mint mark below the year, because that year, none should exist. Next, examine the strike. The million-dollar examples are razor-sharp, with details so fine they almost look like they came from a proof set. Look for doubling, especially in the date and the lettering. And condition is everything. If your coin looks fresh, brilliant, untouched by circulation, you could be staring at a life-changing rarity. But be warned. Most 1967 pennies are worth only face value. Dealers see piles of them every day. What separates the priceless from the ordinary is rarity, error, and condition. Miss even one of those clues, and you might toss away a fortune without ever knowing it. Collectors call it the hunt of a lifetime, the thrill of discovery. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's the 1962 Lincoln penny, but not the ordinary one that millions of Americans dropped in jukeboxes, vending machines, and parking meters. No, this one carries a secret. A secret so rare, most collectors never believed it existed until one day, against all odds, it was found. Back in 1962, the Denver Mint was working at a frantic pace. Billions of Lincoln cents rolled off the presses, each stamped with the small D mark that showed their origin. But somewhere in that chaotic process, something went terribly wrong. A die meant for a proof coin, the kind never meant for circulation, was paired with the wrong planchet, the wrong metal, the wrong details. Out of this mistake was born the coin that would become a $1 million legend. For decades, nobody knew it was out there. It could have been spent on a pack of gum. It could have rattled in a kid's piggy bank. It could have been tossed in a drawer, forgotten. But when one surfaced, it left seasoned collectors speechless. The coin crossed the auction block, and the bidding war that erupted was nothing short of electric. Dealers were on the edge of their seats. Collectors clutched their paddles in disbelief. The final hammer price? Nearly $1.5 million for a coin most people would have mistaken for just another penny in their change jar. Why? Because this coin wasn't just rare, it was a freak accident of history. A wrong die pairing. A double detail invisible to the casual eye. A minting mistake so unique that only a handful could possibly exist. The difference is tiny. It hides in the sharpness of the lettering, in the faint doubling of the word liberty, in the ghost-like second outline of "In God We Trust." If you don't know exactly where to look, it will pass right through your fingers. That's why dealers are desperate to get their hands on it, and why one man's pocket change turned into $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked when photos of the discovery hit the community. Could it be true? Was a 1962 penny really worth more than a house, more than some people's retirement funds? The answer came in black and white when the auctioneer's gavel came down. Yes, it was true, because if one exists, there could be more. Right now, coins like this are waiting, sitting quietly in old jars, in dusty bank rolls, in forgotten collections passed down from grandparents. And every time a new one is found, it shakes the coin world all over again. So how do you know if the penny in your hand could change your life? First, check the date, 1962. Then, flip it to see if there's a small D mint mark under the year. That means Denver. Now comes the real test. Look closely at the lettering. Use a magnifying glass if you can. On the $1 million version, you'll see doubling, subtle, but unmistakable, on "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Even Lincoln's profile may carry a shadow-like second image. Don't be fooled by worn coins or ordinary scratches. True doubling is crisp, clean, and deliberate. The sign of a minting mistake, not of time, and where point one lucky finder spotted it while rolling up change for the bank. Another discovered it inside a jar of pennies saved from childhood. And each time, disbelief turned into joy as the coin was authenticated and the offers began pouring in. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. In 1961, inside the Denver Mint, ordinary copper pennies were rolling off the presses by the millions. Every coin looked the same. Every coin seemed forgettable. But in that river of copper, a single mistake, a hidden flaw in the minting process, created something extraordinary. Something that would one day leave collectors speechless at first glance. This penny looks just like any other. Lincoln's familiar profile. The wheat stalks replaced by the memorial. The small D under the date. Thousands of people spent it, saved it, dropped it on the sidewalk, never suspecting its secret. But buried in its details, etched into its metal, is a mark of rarity so shocking that one example has been valued at nearly $1.4 million. And here's where the story turns. For decades, collectors overlooked it. Auctioneers passed it by. It blended into the endless sea of pocket change. Until one man noticed something strange about the lettering. A tiny irregularity in the word "writ" that should never have existed. It wasn't just an error. It was a ghost, a misprint born from a die clash that should have been destroyed. But somehow, it survived. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to verify. How could a simple penny, a coin no one ever looked at twice, suddenly rewrite its own destiny? But the proof was undeniable. Under magnification, the doubled letters, the misplaced strike, the whisper of a flaw that had hidden in plain sight for 60 years, and with that discovery, the legend of the 1961 writ D mint mark penny was born. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When one of these coins surfaced at auction, bidding started small. A few $100s, then a few thousand. But as word spread, phones lit up, collectors fought, dealers scrambled. And in the final moments, with gasps echoing through the room, the hammer fell at a number no one thought possible. Close to $1.4 million for a single copper penny. And here's the secret that makes this story dangerous. Because not every 1961 Denver penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth only face value. That's why thousands of people have already missed their chance. They've looked too quickly. They've overlooked the signs. They've let $1 million slip through their fingers without even realizing it. Oh, how do you know if you found the real treasure? Look at the date. It must be 1961. Look just below Lincoln's portrait for the tiny D mint mark, showing it came from Denver. Then, turn your eyes to the letters, especially the word trust in God We Trust. On rare error strikes, the R carries a distorted imprint, sometimes appearing as writ. This tiny detail, so small most people miss it, is the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth more than a mansion. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. A small batch of Lincoln cents left the presses with a hidden detail that nobody was supposed to see. Collectors call it the 1960 D over D writ penny. It's not just rare, it's one of the strangest minting accidents in U.S. history. And the value? Staggering. We're talking over $1.3 million for a single coin. Back in 1960, the mint was struggling with die preparation. To strike coins, they used hubs and dies that sometimes carried over marks or needed repunching. On this particular Denver die, the mint mark wasn't just placed once. It was punched, repunched, and left behind a ghostly doubling. Collectors would later call it a writ error, a bizarre overlapping impression that shouldn't exist at all. At first, nobody noticed. Millions of pennies were struck that year, bags shipped across the country, and these odd little cents slipped into circulation without a second thought. They rattled in lunch counters, parking meters, and piggy banks that in the 1970s, a sharp-eyed collector, digging through rolls of old pennies, spotted something strange. On the date and mint mark, he saw shadows, a doubling, like an echo frozen in metal. He took it to a dealer. The dealer nearly dropped the coin in shock. Word spread like wildfire. The mysterious 1960 writ penny had been found. The first one to cross the block sent chills through the room. Bidders raised their paddles like their lives depended on it. Prices climbed higher, faster than anyone believed possible for a penny. By the time the hammer fell, the room sat in stunned silence. That tiny copper coin, once overlooked in circulation, had just sold for more than most people's homes. Each new discovery pushed the legend higher. Coin hunters started tearing through old rolls of 1960 pennies, desperate to spot the tiny detail that could make them rich. Collectors compared every dime marker, every shadowed mint mark, every faint trace of doubling. Most found nothing. A few got lucky that it wasn't just any writ penny. This one had flawless luster, perfect strike, untouched surfaces, a survivor that looked as if it had never left the mint. Graded at the highest possible level, it went to auction, and the bidding war was unlike anything the coin world had ever seen. The final price? Over $1.3 million. For a penny, 1 cent turned into a fortune. The 1960 Denver cent comes in two varieties, the small date and the large date. Both were struck in massive numbers. But only a tiny handful bear the writ mint mark error, that strange repunched D that looks doubled, misaligned, almost like a whisper beneath the surface. If you don't know exactly what to look for, you'll pass it by without a second thought. So how can you tell if you have one? Take a magnifying glass and study the mint mark. On the writ error, you'll see traces of the D punched twice. It's subtle, almost ghost-like, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Don't confuse it with damage, scratches, or dirt. Real writ doubling has sharp, distinct edges, a kind of doubled impression that looks like a shadow of the letter itself. Imagine reaching into an old coin jar, pulling out a penny you've had for years, and realizing you're holding a fortune. Imagine showing it to a dealer and watching their jaw drop as they whisper the words, "This could be worth $1 million." And here's the most unbelievable part. These coins are still out there. They weren't all found. Some are hiding in dusty drawers, forgotten piggy banks, inherited jars of junk change. Every day, someone unknowingly spends one at a gas station, never realizing what they gave away. Because here's the truth. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1980. Lincoln pennies were rolling off the presses by the hundreds of millions. Ordinary coins, ordinary copper, nothing special, or so everyone thought. But hidden among them was a mistake so rare, so shocking, that it turned the humble 1-cent piece into one of the most valuable coins of modern times. You see, every penny struck in Philadelphia in 1980 should carry a small but powerful mark, the mint mark. That tiny letter is the coin's fingerprint, its birthplace. But somehow, a handful escaped the mint without one. No mint mark, no identity. And that mistake would make them legends. When the first of these surfaced, it didn't make headlines right away. It was brushed aside, overlooked. Just another penny. But then word spread. Collectors realized this wasn't just unusual, it was unprecedented. By the time the news hit the auction houses, the price tag was already climbing out of reach. Bids flew in. Gasps filled the room. A penny that cost 1 cent to make was now spiraling into the thousands, the tens of thousands, and finally, into the hundreds of thousands. And then, the unthinkable happened. One of these coins crossed the $1 million mark. A single copper penny, worth more than a mansion. Imagine finding one in your change jar. You pick it up, feel the weight of history, turn it over, and realize the date is 1980. But something feels off. You look closer. No mint mark. No trace of that tiny letter. Suddenly your pulse quickens, your hands tremble. Because you know what that means. Collectors were shocked the first time this error was confirmed. Dealers began rushing to get their hands on them. The buzz spread like wildfire across the coin community. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. And still, after decades, nobody knows exactly how many of these phantom pennies are out there. Here's the secret every serious collector needs to know. Flip over any 1980 Lincoln penny. Look under the date, just above the rim. That's where the mint mark should be. A small D for Denver, an S for San Francisco. But if that space is blank, if it's clean, smooth, untouched, then you might be staring at one of the rarest treasures of American coinage. But don't make the mistake so many beginners do. Scratched off marks don't count. Worn down letters won't fool the experts. The coin must have been struck without the mint mark in the first place. And that's what makes it priceless. Collectors who've seen one in person describe it like electricity running through their veins. Dealers who've held one say it feels like holding history itself. And the prices? They're only climbing higher. Because once the word is out, once the treasure hunt begins, every collector in America will be turning over their pennies. And here's the final twist. These coins are so rare, so elusive, that most experts believe only a handful exist. That means the chances of finding one are almost impossible, but not zero. And for the one person who does, it's not just luck. It's destiny. The next time you reach for a handful of pennies, don't overlook them. Don't dismiss them as spare change. Look closer. Check that date. Study that space beneath it. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was an ordinary Lincoln penny. No mint mark. Just another copper coin that should have been worth a single cent. But hidden in plain sight was a secret so shocking, it stunned the entire coin world. The year was 1949. America was booming after the war. Factories were running day and night, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies. Most were forgettable. Most were common. But a tiny fraction slipped through the presses carrying a mistake so rare, so unthinkable, that today, it could make someone a millionaire. Dealers whispered about it for years. Some thought it was a myth. Others dismissed it as collector's gossip. But then, at a high-stakes auction, a single 1949 no-mint mark Lincoln penny appeared, and the room went silent. Collectors leaned forward, hearts pounding. Bids flew higher and higher, past 6 figures, past 7, until the hammer fell at over $1.2 million. In 1949, penny struck in Philadelphia carried no mint mark. That was normal. But within that year, a handful of coins were created with an unusual set of dies. Subtle doubling on the letters, a barely visible spread across, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," and on some, a strange weakness in the date itself. To the untrained eye, it looked like nothing. But to those who knew, it was a jackpot hiding in plain sight. And here's where the suspense deepens. For decades, thousands of Americans spent these very coins without ever realizing what they held. Children dropped them into piggy banks. Families rolled them up for groceries. They vanished into circulation, blending in perfectly with the billions of ordinary pennies. You see, the difference is razor thin. It's all about spotting that doubled lettering, the slightly off-kilter date, the subtle but undeniable signs of a minting error. If you flip through 1949 pennies, 99 will be worthless. But the 100th could change your life forever. Dealers are racing to find them. Collectors hunt through old jars, estate sales, and forgotten drawers, hoping to uncover one of these million-dollar miracles. Imagine holding a single penny between your fingers, knowing it could pay off your house, your debts, your future. But here's the catch. Thousands of fakes have surfaced. Counterfeiters polish, alter, and even carve pennies to mimic the real thing. Most people don't know how to tell the difference. That's why authentication is everything. The genuine 1949 no-mint mark variety has very specific markers: the spread of the letters, the positioning of the date, and the way the copper aged naturally over 70 years. And when one of these real survivors appears, the frenzy begins. Collectors have been known to travel across the country just to see one. Auction houses promote them like lost treasure. And when the hammer finally falls, the crowd erupts, because history has been made yet again. Another example surfaced. Not in a museum, not in a dealer's vault, but in a dusty box of coins that had been sitting untouched in a family's attic for decades. A grandson sorting through his grandfather's collection nearly tossed it aside, until he noticed something unusual about the lettering. That single moment of curiosity turned into a payday beyond his wildest imagination. Oh, here's how to know if you've got the treasure. Look closely at your 1949 Lincoln pennies. No mint mark under the date means it was struck in Philadelphia, and that's where the rare variety lives. Inspect "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" under magnification. If the letters appear doubled, If the date looks slightly stretched or distorted, you may be holding a fortune. Don't clean it, don't polish it, and don't spend it. Have it authenticated immediately. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.